racial tensions in Brooklyn reach a boiling point on a brutally hot summer day. Special guest Eddie Perez-Cortes joins us to chat about video game remakes, massaging pizza dough, and racism, police brutality, and other depressing real-world topics. Listen to The Truth, Ruth, as we find out if Do the Right Thing stands the test of time.
Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? James says gladiator with a glut. Alan says as a father, blah blah. It's the test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today?
Hi, everyone. I'm James Brief, host of the Test of Time podcast. Welcome. And here's my podcast co-host, Alan Noah.
Hi, that's me. And we are joined by a very special guest tonight. Welcome back to the show, Eddie Perez-Cortes.
Thank you so much. I feel like I should be getting a round of applause, but there's only the two of you right here. Woo. Oh, shucks. I spoke too soon.
It was forced because,
Yeah, I asked for it.
You asked for it, yeah.
Wow.
And not in a you asked for it kind of way, not in a threat.
Get off my lawn.
Right. I am very glad that you're here. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I know that you wanted to come back on the show because you mentioned it at your holiday party.
Possibly several times.
Maybe. It was a wine and cheese party. There was wine.
And cheese.
And cheese, right. But it was really funny because I knew some of the people there and some people I didn't know. And I was trying to be, friendly and outgoing and introduce myself to people. And then I would be talking to someone for a while. And then, Eddie, you would come over and say, hey, have you met my friend Al? He has a podcast. It's called The Test of Time. It's great. You were really heavily advocating for The Test of Time that day.
And did your listenership go up after that party?
That's a good question. I don't know. I saw a couple people hit the subscribe button on their phones. I don't know if they ever actually listened to any episodes, but if you're out there and you listen to the podcast from Eddie's Wine and Cheese Party, write to us at Test of Time Pod, Facebook, X, Instagram, Threads. Let us know. I would love to know. But not only were you talking about the podcast, but you did also say that you wanted to come on to do the right thing. And you were kind of like going back and forth between that and a different movie, but you were like, no, do the right thing. That's the one. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. But first, you wanted to talk about video game remakes, right?
I did, yeah. And I've requested the banter previously, so I felt like I should again.
I love that you do that, by the way. That is great. You knew the assignment.
It's my calling card.
Awesome.
Video game remakes have been quite a popular trend recently. What we're seeing is a lot of nostalgia for older video games. Most recently, Nintendo just released Mario vs. Donkey Kong, which my son just asked for his 9th birthday. You have Final Fantasy VII Remake, which just came out. Luigi's Mansion 2 is coming out on Switch later this year. Since we're all big video game buffs, we all do Nick's Marathon every year together. I wanted to ask the two of you what your thoughts were on video game remakes.
One thing that's really good about video game remakes is that most people are not necessarily going to know that a new video game that's a remake is a remake. There's certain video games that are absolute improvements over the original. Super Mario Brothers All-Stars, that was one made, it was the original first three Super Mario Brothers remade on the SNES, but it had a save state on it. So better graphics, not necessarily needed, but the saving, that right there, that was a reason to do it.
And the lost levels.
Well, the Lost Levels, I wouldn't necessarily consider a remake since we never got it. But I guess it was a remake in that a kid like the three of us, we had never heard of, Super Mario Bros. 2 Japan because it wasn't in Nintendo Power, so we didn't know about it. But speaking of Nintendo, old NES games, there was a remake of Metroid, the original Metroid, called Metroid Zero Mission. That was on, I think, maybe Game Boy Advance or one of the DS's. And it was not only a graphical update, but the original, there was no map. And I guess if it's the 80s and you have nothing else to do on Sunday but play this game for 5 hours, you slowly learn how to do it. But modern video games don't like that stuff. So I really appreciated that when I played that. It was maps and kind of more where to go. What do you think? I know you bought Link's Awakening. That was a really very crudely graphic Game Boy game, and good for a Game Boy, but it wasn't the great graphics. And then they remade it for the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, and I never played it on Game Boy. Was it Game Boy or Game Boy Color?
Well, it was definitely Game Boy, and then they made Link's Awakening DX, which was a color version.
Oh, okay. That was the reason I bought it, because I'd never played it before. And that's kind of my feeling on remakes, is that if I've already bought it, I'm not going to buy it again. Part of that is me being cheap. The other part of it is that I have in my basement my old Atari and Nintendo and Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64 and GameCube and Wii. So I don't need to rebuy these things, and I don't want to rebuy them. If I want to play an old game, I can. So that's why I tend to not buy a remake. Even Mario Kart 8, I was really hesitant to buy Mario Kart 8 Deluxe until they started doing all the DLC, and I was like, well, damn it, fine, I guess I will buy it. But did you get Mario versus Donkey Kong for your son?
Yes, we did. I never played Mario vs. Donkey Kong.
Okay.
I'm enjoying it very much. It's a puzzle game. I like puzzle games. It's got a two-player option.
Oh, nice.
Co-op two-player option, which makes it a little bit more challenging because you have to find two keys as opposed to one.
Okay.
But it's fun. It's fun to play together. It's fun to sort of beat these puzzles together. But just back to the general theme of video game remakes for a minute. The reason I mentioned this, I agree with you, Al, right? If you've played the video game before, there really is no reason to spend money on it again. I feel like that's sort of a bit of a
Cash grab.
Cash grab, exactly. Thank you. By the video game companies. But there is also an interesting dynamic to it. A lot of these older video games, the source code for them has been lost over time. So when they're remaking these games, they actually have to go through the entire development process again. So it's not like they just dust it off, give it a fresh coat of paint, and you're off with a new game. It's actually going through the entire development process again. So there is a legitimate reason for them to upcharge you for it.
Right.
Nevertheless, the value of maybe like one extra little quest or something, if you've played a game already, is not worth it to me.
That's fair. Although then going back to the Mario Kart 8 thing, that they didn't have to rebuild from scratch. And so when they charge $60 for the game on Switch, when I just paid $60 for the game on Wii U, that pisses me off. I know no one else had the Wii U, which is why they can get away with it and why it sold a bajillion copies. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, that was also a Wii U game that I bought, and then they ported it to Switch. No, I'm not paying another $60 for that. No way.
There's a game that I absolutely love, Resident Evil 4. I'm not even a big fan of the Resident Evil games, but Resident Evil 4, it's one of the highest praised games of all time. It's just a fantastic game, originally on the GameCube. Then I rebought it on the Wii. The graphics are mostly the same, but now I can point at the screen and it can be like a real gun. And then our buddy Uri from the Matrix podcast, he bought me Resident Evil on the Oculus or the Meta or whatever, because that's a whole different experience. I'm walking through the village, and now there's a new one, Resident Evil 4 remake that's like for the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X generation, and I haven't bought it yet, but I'm waiting. I'm gonna be a patient gamer because it's still like
when it goes down to like $35 maybe.
Yeah, or even more. I play the game so much. I would be happy to replay it again through.
Did either of you play Diablo 2 on the PC when it came out back when we were in college?
No.
I played a little Diablo, but that was a great game.
Another example where they Blizzard remastered that game. Again, another cash grab. I was considering buying it for a hot second, then I'm like, well, I have 2 kids in a life, and I don't have time to invest in this. And then I've recently been watching a YouTube channel. They released Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. They released it on an emulator, but like James was saying, they released it with a map functionality, new features, sort of give it a fresh coat of paint, and make it a bit of a more playable game.
Actually, I found my old Game Boy during COVID or something, and I was playing Metroid 2. Oh my God, it's kind of unplayable. I mean, the graphics are actually pretty decent, but it just screams to me as I'm playing. It's like, It's 1992. It's a Sunday afternoon. It's raining. No one can come over and play, and you have nothing to do, and just jump around and try to bomb every single pixel to find where the hidden but required tunnel is. And then they released Metroid 2 on, I think it was DS or 3DS, and it was just such a good, such a better game. And it was a big hit back in the 90s when the original came out, but sensibilities are different now. So, to game companies, there's probably a lot of flops from try to look at the late NES, late Super Nintendo Genesis, the late part that no one really bought, but that they're great games and that the internet talks about that are great, and remake them. People will probably love them.
I think we're so lucky in today's day and age to have modern controllers to play some of these games. I remember the first time picking up the Xbox controller and seeing the 2 joysticks and feeling that, playing Halo, feeling that 2-axis control. You're like, oh wow, this is a game changer.
Halo is actually the game that made the modern controls on every single game, because Metroid Prime and then Time Splitters, every single first-person shooter you'd play
same controls.
They all had different controls back then, and then Halo came out. I think it was called the Legendary control method, and that's the one everyone said, play Halo on Legendary, and that became the one that every single game today uses.
I mean, if you go back now and play GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64 emulator on Nintendo Switch, you have fond memories, I'm sure, of playing that in college. But the Nintendo 64 controllers are so poor compared to the modern 3D Xbox Switch controllers. That's another game, GoldenEye, which I feel is ripe for a remaster.
I think there was some kind of rights thing with GoldenEye, the rights to the game.
You might be right.
And that was why they didn't port it. Bottom line is, I tend to want to play new games, and I have so little time to play games that whenever I do, I want to play something new. Even when I get it, I appreciate that it's an old game, but a whole new way of experiencing it. Yeah, I'd just rather play something new for the little bit of time that I have. But Eddie, let's talk about Do the Right Thing. Why did you pick this movie? Why was this the one that you wanted to come back to talk about?
So, Do the Right Thing, if you guys remember, to our freshman year at Cornell, we had to take a freshman writing seminar. All freshmen had to take a freshman writing seminar.
Right.
And you had a whole catalog of seminars that you could take. And the seminar that I chose to take was writing about film.
Cool.
And I remember seeing a couple of classic movies in that writing seminar. We saw Some Like It Hot. We saw Psycho. We saw Do the Right Thing.
Some Like It Hot is going to be our episode next week.
That's a total coincidence.
Total coincidence. I had no idea.
How about that?
How about that? Maybe I'll stay for that. No, I won't.
Okay. But so you hadn't seen Do the Right Thing before that course?
I had not seen Do the Right Thing before that. I remember writing an essay about it. I don't remember how good it was. Many years later, I rewatched it while we were going through, my wife and I were going through a podcast during the pandemic where the 2 co-hosts were going through the AFI Top 100 list of all movies.
Unspooled.
Yes,
Okay.
Unspooled. That is the podcast. And rewatched it with a fresh set of eyes, being obviously older now, and really came to appreciate the movie a lot more. We obviously rewatched it for this record right now, and I've even come to appreciate the movie even more through some of the recent events that have been going on in our country.
Sure.
So I think there's a lot to dissect here. I'm excited to talk to you guys about it. I think it's probably as prescient now as it was in 1989 when it came out. But with that, James, I don't know if you want to talk about I don't know, I'm stealing your thunder, Al.
What?
You want to talk about the box office?
Look at you diving right in. I love it.
He's been here 4 times. He knows his stuff.
That's right. That's right. Well, I mean, we should do a synopsis of the movie first.
Sorry, I apologize.
I'll recap the movie. Then, James, you can do the box office. But the movie takes place over the course of one brutally hot summer day in the Bed-Stuy neighborhood of Brooklyn. Mookie lives with his sister Jade and has a son with his girlfriend Tina. He works as a delivery man for Sal's famous pizzeria, which is run by Sal and his 2 sons, Pino and Vito. DeMayer and Mother Sister are the neighborhood elders looking out for the youth on the block. Radio Raheem carries his boombox with him everywhere, blasting Public Enemy. Smiley is mentally disabled and wanders around the neighborhood selling pictures of Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. A young man named Buggin' Out is angry that Sal's has a wall of fame that only features pictures of Italian Americans and no black people. He tries to organize a boycott, but everyone loves Sal's pizza. Eventually, he recruits Radio Raheem to his cause. When they go to the pizzeria, Sal is enraged by the loud music and he destroys Radio Raheem's boombox. This leads to a huge brawl, and when the police arrive, they kill Radio Raheem. Mookie throws a garbage can through one of the pizzeria's windows, and the place is burned down. The next day, Sal and Mookie talk and agree to go their separate ways. Eddie, why don't you ask him?
So, James, why don't you tell us the box office take?
Very good. Very well done.
All right. Well, this film came out on June 3rd, 1989, and it had a $6 million budget, and its opening weekend actually made $3.5 million. Made half its budget back on opening weekend, wound up making $27 million. And that's at the box office. And this film famously did not get nominated for Best Picture. Right. But I feel like 8 months later, when the Oscars were coming out in February, I feel like all the talk about it probably gave so much more hype to it. Because $27 million, did well for its budget, but that means that not that many people saw it. I didn't see it as, I guess this came out when we were 9 years old, but I'd heard of it as a kid, I feel like.
I definitely did not hear about it until the writing seminar that I referred to you both as. And I grew up in Queens, not too far from Brooklyn, where this, obviously the events of this movie took place. It was shot on location in Brooklyn at Bed-Stuy. But going back to, for a second, in 1989, just to level set for our listeners, the Berlin Wall came down in 1989. Tiananmen Square came down in 1989. There's a lot of anger and rage in the zeitgeist during that year. And I think it has a lot of parallels with what you see in this movie.
And there were several incidences where black people were killed by cops and just white angry mobs. They talk about Michael Griffith, who was killed in Howard Beach, and Eleanor Bumpurs, Michael Stewart. The movie's dedicated to them. And that shit really does stand the test of time. The names have changed, but the story has not. And this shit happens all the time. 35 years later, we're still talking about black people, unarmed black people, killed by cops. And it happened long before this movie as well. It's not like it just started in 1987, 88, 89, but that was on Spike Lee's mind when he sat down to write this movie. And he wrote it in 2 weeks, which is insane. But yeah, I mean, he, as a black man, a black New Yorker, felt very connected to these stories. And that was what motivated him to write this movie. You did ask before we hit record, Eddie, that we should caveat or disclaimer.
Disclaimer, yes.
Yes, something, whichever word you choose, that we are white guys talking about this movie. And I think that it's okay. I think that we can treat the subject matter with the respect it deserves. Along those lines, Eddie, you did say us three white guys. Do you identify as white?
I do.
Okay.
I do. White and Hispanic. Back to what you were referring to about some of those incidents. There's also a scene in the movie, if you blink, you miss it. But there's, I think Mookie is talking to somebody. There's a graffiti on the wall behind him. It says, "Tawana told the truth."
Right, he's talking to his sister Jade.
Yes.
Yeah,
it refers to a real person. I forget exactly her name. Tawana something.
Tawana Brawley.
Tawana Brawley, yes, thank you. I forget exactly the incident, but she was challenged for claimed that she did not tell the truth in her testimony.
Yeah, I looked that up because I didn't know that story, and I read it. She said that she was gang raped and left in the forest. People said that her claims were not true, so that's what that's referring to. I also looked up the stories of Michael Stewart and Eleanor Bumpurs and the other people that this movie is dedicated to, and I depressed the shit out of myself earlier today reading these stories. And, again, it's not very different from the stories that...
Black Lives Matter, that generated all that.
Exactly, right? I mean, if the movie came out today, they would be saying George Floyd and Breonna Taylor.
Absolutely.
But it's the same fucking story.
I always thought that a movie like Schindler's List, it's not as important for Jewish people to see this. I personally felt... I think other people that have no idea this thing ever happened need to see this. And certainly I don't have the perspective that the African American growing up in any of these things would have, but I have this perspective of seeing it. So I think it's important for other people to see movies about other ethnicities.
James is a really, really good point, and it leads me to something I want to talk about. Some of the critics' commentary when this movie came out.
Yeah.
This movie was famously panned by most critics. I think the only critic who actually came out in support of this movie was Roger Ebert.
Yes, who very emphatically loved this movie.
Yes.
I don't want to put my boy Gene Siskel down. Ebert said it was number 4 film of the year. Siskel said it was number 6.
Most critics came out very negatively against this movie, saying things like, this isn't a true representation of a black neighborhood. They said, where are the drug dealers? Where's the crime? Fucking awful.
Horrific, yeah.
Horrific. My mom had her accountancy firm for a long time in a very lower class area of Corona. A lot of off the boat Hispanic immigrants that lived there, Colombians from the Golden Triangle in Central America. And I spent a lot of time there in my youth. And the scenes from this movie reminded me a lot of the scenes from that neighborhood. There were people trying to make a living at bodegas, sitting in their porches like Mother's Sister was. You didn't see any drug dealers. You didn't see any crime. You didn't see that stuff. So what a fucking terrible thing to say, and what a just fucking racist thing to say.
Yeah.
The critics also said that there would be blood on Spike Lee's hands if black people rioted after seeing this movie. Again, right. What a fucking racist thing to say, that black people did not understand what art meant, while a white person can go in to a movie and see The Predator or Rambo and not come out of that movie and want to shoot up the movie theater or shoot up the mall. You mentioned the Academy Awards earlier. Kim Basinger was actually presenting the Best Pictures for 1989 and early 1990 at the Academy Awards. You know what movie won that year?
I do. Driving Miss Daisy.
Which is a whitewashed version of racism.
Right. I've never seen it, but it's a classic white savior movie, I believe.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. But anyway, so Kim Basinger, when she was reading the movies that were up for Best Picture, unscripted, said, Do the Right Thing should be on this list.
Right. And the producers of the show were furious at her, and Spike Lee is very grateful to Kim Basinger for saying that.
And now Spike Lee has his Oscar for BlacKkKlansman.
Right. It is bullshit that this movie wasn't nominated, and that the movie that won was a white savior movie, and also not terribly surprising, as we know from Oscar So White a few years ago, who's voting on these movies. Is it people who want the actual depiction of racism, or is it the people who just want the whitewash, white savior kind of version, which is a lot more palatable to white people? That's what it's for. That's who it's for.
So the producers and the production companies the first production company actually asked Spike Lee to change the ending of the movie. They wanted him to, after the riot, the next day, Mookie goes to Sal and they embrace.
Right.
And he said, fuck you. I'm not giving it this stupid Hollywood ending. I'm taking it to another production company.
It was at Paramount, then he took it to Universal. Tom Pollock, I believe, was the head of the studio, who was a champion for Spike Lee and for this movie. And apparently he had been getting death threats because of The Last Temptation of Christ, which was a controversial movie. And Spike Lee said, if this guy didn't want to release this movie, I wouldn't have held it against him. But he fucking did it, and he went for it, and he released it in the summer.
In the summertime, too.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it would be so fucking stupid to release this movie in, March or...
Initially, it was supposed to be called Heat Wave, not Do the Right Thing.
Right. So it's great that that this guy stuck to his guns and, was able to capitalize on Paramount's mistake and, get his hands on this amazing movie.
Can we talk about some of the actors for a minute in this movie?
Yes, let's.
So many actors had their debut roles in this movie. Rosie Perez, her debut role. Spike Lee actually found Rosie Perez in a club dancing in LA.
Do you know what song she was dancing to?
The butt.
The butt. It's so funny. She got on top of a speaker and was doing the butt, and Spike Lee told her to come down because it was his party, and he thought that if she fell, he would get sued. And she cursed him out, and he's listening to her yell and scream and curse, and he's like, "You'd be perfect in my movie." She thinks that he's just hitting on her, being like, "Hey, I'll put you in my movie." You know, classic scummy pickup line. That was the line. Like, you're an actor, you just don't know it yet. But he was right, and this is her first movie role.
He loved her Brooklyn accent and recast, actually, Mookie's girlfriend to be Puerto Rican. Because originally Mookie's girlfriend was supposed to be black. Martin Lawrence, his first movie.
Right.
Samuel L. Jackson was not his first one, but Spike Lee and Samuel L. Jackson actually went to college together at Morehouse.
Right.
So that's how they knew each other.
And he's credited as Sam Jackson in this movie.
He is. Okay. Did not know that.
Is it a Turturro's first film?
I don't know if
It's got to be early on.
It's got to be early, one of his early films, yeah. Interestingly about Turturro, so Spike Lee grew up in a middle-class Italian section of Brooklyn. John Turturro grew up in a lower-class black section of Brooklyn. So it's interesting the dichotomy that they play as these different characters in the movie.
Right. They had similar experiences, just kind of inverted.
Inverted, yeah, exactly.
We should also talk about Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee, who play DeMayer and Mother Sister, respectively. They were the big actors in this movie in 1989. This was before John Turturro became a huge star, and it was before Giancarlo Esposito was most famous for being Gus Fring, before Rosie Perez hit it big with White Men Can't Jump.
Even Danny Aiello was unknown?
No, he wasn't unknown. I think he was in Godfather Part 2?
I know De Niro apparently was going to get that role,
Yes.
and then De Niro said, no, give it to Danny.
It was not his first movie. He was well known, but he was not a huge star. But Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee were very well known, very well respected actors. They come from theater. They had been on Broadway. They had done all of this amazing
Aren't they a
work.
real life couple?
They are. They were married in real life, which kind of makes it funnier the way that they're bickering for most of the movie. And they were also friends with Bill Lee, Spike Lee's father, who did the music. Not the Public Enemy song, obviously, but the kind of the more jazz score. Those two were like the big get for Spike Lee, that he was able to get these kind of older actors to really impart some wisdom and gravitas to his movie that beyond those two was really a lot more younger people, a lot of fresh faces.
That soundtrack, that jazz soundtrack, for some reason, those long saxophone tunes, I can feel how hot it is on the street. They're just sitting there sweating and wah, wah, wah. It's weird that music is able to convey how uncomfortable everyone is.
I mean, Bill Lee is an incredible musician. He's played with like some of the all-time greats of rock and roll and soul and jazz, played with Bob Dylan, an amazing musician in his own right. And then he scored several of Spike Lee's films.
But it's great, the juxtaposition between that jazz soundtrack that you have kind of in the background. At the very beginning of the movie, you have that jazz soundtrack that just kind of fades out. And then you start the Public Enemy, Fight the Power, which repeats itself many times during the movie.
15 times, which is a lot of times for one song to be in one movie.
Yes.
And I feel like on the podcast, James, we've talked about how we like That Thing You Do, the song, but in the movie, it gets repetitive. Footloose, they play it a couple times in that movie. A Night at the Roxbury, they play What Is Love a few times, and you're like, it just gets grating. It doesn't get grating in this movie. And I think that's really just because it's a brilliant fucking song written for this movie. Spike Lee felt like he needed an anthem. He called up his buddy, Chuck D, who wrote this song. Apparently it was the second song that he wrote. The first song wasn't angry enough. And Chuck D didn't really know what the movie was about. He needed something with anger and rage. And it's a very powerful anthem. The beginning, after that jazz fades, it's just the credits with that song and Rosie Perez. Yeah, like fighting.
You can feel the anger.
Oh, yeah.
Partially because Rosie Perez was filming that dance scene for 8 straight hours.
Right.
And she got so angry at Spike Lee during those hours that you could almost feel the anger coming out through the camera lens at the very end.
That's like one of those Kubrick things where it
Yes.
just makes Shelley Duvall do it 150 times so that she goes insane. I don't think Spike Lee's known to do those kind of things.
She did have a negative experience with the nude scene,
Yes.
which she's talked about,
Yes.
that the reason you don't see her face when he's putting the ice on her breasts is because she is sobbing uncontrollably. When I first watched the movie, I was like, well, that's clearly a body double because it's just the breasts on screen. But no, it really was Rosie Perez, and she hated the experience, and she was mad at Spike Lee, but then they hugged it out. She's done nudity and other things. So it, wasn't a lifelong grudge or anything like that. But kind of to your point, James, about the music conveying heat, the colors really convey heat. The cinematography also really conveys heat. Ernest Dickerson is the cinematographer. They did a lot of, I don't want to call them camera tricks because that makes it sound cheap, and it's not cheap, but like he would hold a sterno flame right under the lens to kind of give it that distorted, wavy heat effect. And they go to great lengths to make you feel the heat. And that is impressive. You also feel the anger, the rage, like you're saying with that dance. I mean, it starts right with Rosie Perez.
The cinematography in this movie is unbelievable. I'm glad you brought it up, Al. I was going to bring it up in a little bit. The way he does so many shots, just using askew camera angles. Mm-hmm. The way he films Radio Raheem.
Always up,
where you feel him as just larger than life character.
Right.
The way he films Sal versus Pino and Vito. The way he films the tracking shots through the brownstone.
Yeah.
And also when Sal and Pino are talking and they're having this great heart-to-heart moment. Sal is telling Pino he loves his neighborhood, yada, yada, yada. And then Smiley comes out. Pino gets up, tries to chase him away. And Sal, for all the positive qualities you just saw in Sal just sits there like an innocent bystander and does nothing.
Yeah.
Until it's too late.
Right. Yeah. He eventually
gives him a couple of dollars.
Right. And then is kind of talking down the three guys on the corner who are yelling at Pino. And the camera is always moving in really interesting ways, except for when it's not and it's locked down and you just are stuck with these characters. You're uncomfortable. The shots make you uncomfortable when you're supposed to feel uncomfortable. They make you feel small when you're supposed to be intimidated by Radio Raheem. I mean, it is masterful.
I thought it was great when he tricked you into thinking that Radio Raheem was breaking the fourth wall with his love-hate soliloquy.
Yes.
Right.
And then they just swing the camera around 180 and he's talking to Mookie, which in a weird way, Spike Lee's the director, so he was kind of talking to him behind the camera.
That's a really good point.
Yep. But one of my favorite camera tricks in this, I wouldn't call it a trick, just one of the uses that cinematography does, it's what I would call just the rage scene. And something that Spike Lee does, he puts the perspective of all the characters here. So this rage scene is just basically from the cop's point of view, or from some of the neighborhood guys' point of view, and Sal's point of view, or not Sal, I think one of his sons in this, Pino's in this. Everyone is so angry, and it's getting fiercer and fiercer and fiercer, and then finally Sam Jackson's character just says, "Everybody chill." What a great scene. It's incredibly uncomfortable, it's powerfully done.
It's incredibly uncomfortable. It took me out of the movie on this watch for a minute, but I think that was Spike Lee's purpose, to take you out of the movie and talk about some bigger things than the movie, talk about some of these racial tensions that still exist. But again, cinematography plays such a big factor in these scenes. You're zooming right into the person's face. The actor is looking right at the camera. It's an angry moment. Again, back to this concept, this theme of anger. It's an angry moment in the movie.
Yeah. It also feels somewhat theatrical, almost like a play.
Like a play, like a Shakespearean play, like a Greek tragedy or something like that.
Yeah, kind of just the characters taking a minute, breaking the fourth wall, talking to the audience, letting you know what's really on their mind. Because a lot of what this movie is people saying one thing and doing another thing. Like that is a running theme where Mookie is always talking about how he needs to go and get paid. I have a job. I have to go do my job. He doesn't fucking work hard. He's constantly like slacking off. He's going home to take a shower. He's visiting his girlfriend. Sal says all of these wonderful things about the neighborhood and then, uses the N-word later. There is just this underlying undercurrent of rage that's just there, and that scene allows it to spill out. I never do this on the podcast, and I should do it more, but who has the fucking time? I watched this movie twice, in part because we were supposed to record in February, and then you got the flu, and we had to push it back a few weeks. I watched it then, and then I watched it again because I wanted it to be really fresh in my mind. But something that kind of leapt out at me on the second viewing was that a lot of this anger and the conflicts that happen in this movie, it's because of the racism. It's because of this rage and then, compounded by the heat wave. But so many of the conflicts in this movie could have been completely avoided if people had just shown a little bit of respect. If they had just talked to each other like they were talking to another human being, none of this shit would have happened. I mean, bugging out, if he had gone up to Sal and said, "Hey, Sal, this is in a black neighborhood. Would you consider maybe putting some black people up on the Wall of Fame? I know I would appreciate it. I think a lot of other people would appreciate it. What do you say, Sal?" Sal might have said, "Yeah, sure, that's not a bad idea." But that's not what bugging out does. He's screaming, he's cursing. He says, "What the motherfucker, you got to put some brothers up on this motherfucking wall." So of course Sal is going to get defensive. No one wants to be talked to like that.
It's interesting. You have that theory. It's a lovely theory. And I know one person who would agree with you and one person who wouldn't agree with you. Who do you think I'm talking about? And Spike Lee agrees with me.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'll give you a hint. It's at the very end of the film. One person who agrees with you. Why didn't everyone just talk this over?
Oh, you're talking about Dr. King and Malcolm X.
Exactly. So, I think that's very much the point of, we talk about the very end of the film. There's this quote, and it's a long quote. It's paragraphs long, each of them. And it basically says how Martin Luther King says, violence itself is going to lead to your own destruction because it makes the other side hate you, and then you hate them, and it leads nowhere. Versus Malcolm X, who had a very different attitude, who said, if my people have been enslaved and I'm not, I'm treated as a lower human, I call it self-defense. I don't call it violence. And I think Spike Lee's trying to show you that there certainly are two takes on that.
I think that's right. And I also think that the message that Spike Lee's trying to come across is that a lot of these major events that happen, riots, Black Lives Matter, other things like that, don't happen by a snap of the fingers. They happen because of small organic events that happen over the course of many, many days. Yeah. In this case, it's just one single day, but they're small little events that when it's finished, you say to yourself, "Oh, that was nothing." But then coupled together with X number of other events that are the same thing, the same type of thing, all of a sudden it bubbles up to this huge snowball and the dam bursts and boom, you have a ride. You have a Mookie throwing the garbage can through the pizzeria.
There is apparently two theories on this, and Spike Lee says that in his view, Mookie threw the garbage can simply because his best friend Raheem was murdered in front of him, and he's just so angry. And in his point of view, that was the right thing. Remember, always, son, do the right thing. And maybe there is a little bit of a violence. I'm just so angry that we do need to show we're that pissed off. Maybe there's a Malcolm X element in there. But apparently there's another theory that Mookie actually did that because there was a huge crowd going around and people are blaming Sal and his sons for the death of Radio. And there's a theory that Mookie actually threw the window to save Sal and his sons. And they're pushed to the side. Guys, stay behind the fence. Just stay here. Let them burn it down. There's nothing you can do about it. And apparently Spike Lee likes that scene is open to both interpretations.
I watched the movie once. Then I read that theory about that he was protecting Sal by throwing the window. I was like, oh, maybe. When I watched the movie again, I was like, that's definitely not true. That is definitely not the case. I think that is very, very clear from Mookie's face and what you see. And then when I heard Spike Lee say that that was not his intention at all when he wrote that scene, when he shot that scene, when he acted in that scene, I was like, yeah, okay. I like the theory, but that's definitely not what's going on. It's definitely just rage. And you used an interesting phrase there, James, where you said that him throwing the garbage can is the right thing. I don't know that it's necessarily the right thing or the wrong thing. Spike Lee has said that white people ask him if that was the right thing, and that only white people ever ask that question. Black people never bother to ask that. But the movie is called Do the Right Thing. It really kind of is a morality play, and it's perfectly fair to watch this movie and look at every decision made by every character and say, is that the right thing? Is that the right thing? I think, by and large, virtually everything that the characters do in this movie is the wrong thing. The most notable exception is probably DeMayer, because he saves the kids. He's the one who puts Sal and his sons over by that brownstone and protects them. DeMayer does more right things than I think anyone else does. I bring all of that up because I think that Mookie throwing the garbage can, it's not even worth asking the question, is that the right thing? Is it the wrong thing? That almost transcends right or wrong. It's just what needs to happen. It is just the rage of seeing someone that you love be murdered. And I think the reason that white people ask Spike Lee that question, and only white people, is because that's just sort of the ingrained mentality. We saw this shit a few years ago during the Black Lives Matter protests. What were the people on Fox News screaming about? A store window was broken. A store was on fire. That's not the fucking problem. A man is dead. People are dead. That's what we're angry about. Where's the outrage over that? And that even does come into play at the end of the movie when Mr. Senior Love Daddy is doing his final radio spiel at the end. He says that the mayor is going to investigate this incident because, and I quote, no one is allowed to damage private property. That's the thing. That's what the city is worried about, is the pizzeria.
Yeah. I want to talk for a minute about the Radio Raheem fight with Sal at the very end.
Yeah.
The pizzeria is closed down. Sal's having this beautiful moment with his sons. Mm-hmm. He had a really great day. It was the hottest day of the year. Sold tons of pizzas, made shit ton of money. He said, I'm going to rename the pizzeria to Sal and Sons. Mookie, I think of you as a son, right? You're going to be here forever. Right. We're going to be here forever. We're going to be in this neighborhood forever. And then Martin Lawrence and his three friends come. Sal goes, yeah, come on in. We'll make you one more slice. And then Radio Raheem comes in blasting Public Enemy. And I see so many parallels happening today. Radio Raheem comes in, blasting his music. Sal tells him to turn it off. He gets angry. They both get angry. Sal picks up his bat, smashes the radio. By the way, did you notice that after Sal smashes the radio, till the end of the movie, there is no soundtrack playing. It is quiet.
Yeah.
I noticed that on this watch.
I also noticed that he grabs the baseball bat earlier in the movie too, when he's
he puts it down.
Pino takes it out of his hand when he's fighting with Bugging Out.
But Sal is the one that breaks the radio.
Yeah.
Radio Raheem retaliates. When the cops come, who do they go after? They go after Radio Raheem.
Sure.
Immediately. They don't ask any questions. They go after Radio Raheem. That is injustice for every single minority and every single person that has been in that situation.
Sure.
And then the cops really in this movie are the villains. The cops are nameless, faceless people, sort of a dime a dozen, replace white face with white face.
No, there are non-white cops in this film.
Oh, there are?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, Smiley says that. Smiley says that one of the cops was black. I didn't notice one of the cops being black. I noticed that one of the guys holding Radio Raheem, at first I thought it was a civilian because he's not in a police uniform. Then later on you do kind of see he has like a badge around his
badge,
chain. Yeah.
But the cops are, again, stereotypical cops, right? With this mentality of, I am out in this really bad neighborhood. I need to get back home to my family, do whatever it takes to get back home to the family. They take it too far. And they end up killing Radio Raheem without even realizing it. And then they're the only ones that run away.
Also, while they're strangling him, everyone is screaming, stop, stop, you're killing him. And they keep going. And then after he collapses down to the ground,
They take his body.
well, yeah, I was going to say before that, they kick him.
Yeah.
They kick his dead body.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, really painful to watch. I hated watching that scene a second time because the first time I watched the movie, when he's lying in the back of that cop car, I was wondering if we were going to see him blink or gasp for air and no, he's badly beaten, but he's alive, which, of course, to be clear, would still be a horrific tragedy and injustice. But I wasn't sure if the movie was going to go there, that he was really dead or not.
The next scene after the cops leave, the whole entire neighborhood is on one side, and Sal and his sons and Mookie are on the other side. Again, the cinematography in this movie is fantastic. You see the tension, the conflict on Mookie's face. You see him making his choice to walk over to the other side and then go straight to the garbage can and throw it through the window. And then, obviously all hell breaks loose. And then Smiley is the one that ends up lighting the match that sets the pizzeria ablaze.
Right.
It comes back down to the three people that were wronged in the early part of this movie. Radio Raheem was upset because Sal made him turn off his music earlier in the movie. Bugging Out was upset because of the Wall of Fame. And then Smiley, again, back to that scene I was talking about earlier, where Pino tells them to get off their property. Those are the three guys that take action to their own hands at the end of the movie.
Right. That sort of ties into what I was saying earlier about, is it the right thing? Is it the wrong thing? Who gives a shit? People who look like us, we are far less likely to be in that situation, to see a cop murder someone that we love and then drive away with the body, knowing full goddamn well that the cops are going to get away with it and that the only thing people are going to be mad about is a fire or a riot or a broken pane of glass or whatever. And so what you do in that moment, maybe you throw a garbage can through a window, maybe you light a fire, maybe you just stand there in the street screaming no like Mother Sister does. We are unlikely to know how that feels. I mean, that's like white privilege, right?
100%.
But it's unfathomable and horrific and tragic. And while we're talking about all of this really sad stuff, I do just want to say that a thing I really like about this movie is that it's not pure agony and sadness and rage. There are moments of real joy in this movie. I really, really love that scene where they're kind of playing in the water and the fire hydrant. Did they do that in your neighborhood in Queens?
They did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always thought that was romantic in a way, like that idea of just playing in the fire hydrant when they're getting ices and
the ice cream truck comes in.
Yeah. And like some of the moments where the three guys on the corner are just kind of shooting shit and talking about sex. And there's a moment with Tina and Mookie when they're, a happy couple. And all of those scenes are bookended by bad shit that's going on. But I like the fact that Spike Lee allows these people to not just be miserable, sad, oppressed people. There is joy and there is life. And even though the movie only takes place in one day, you get it. Like you get the history, you understand who these people are and what's happened in their past and why they're upset and what makes them happy and all of that. So I just feel like I had to say that because we were really lingering on all of the bad shit.
Like, going back to the characters in general for a minute in this movie, there is no perfect character in this movie. All the characters have some flaw to them. Mookie is a bad father. Sal, we talked about Sal's flaws earlier. Vito and Pino have their own flaws.
Mostly Pino.
Mostly Pino, yes. You talked about the mayor, how he's probably, you can consider him the hero of the movie. He's an alcoholic.
Right.
You could argue Mother's sister might be the only one that doesn't have a flaw.
She's very judgmental
She
to
is
the
very
mayor.
yeah.
And we kind of don't ever really get a reason. Jade says, "Why are you so mean to him?" And she says, "He reminds me of my tenant and my ex-husband," which is not a very good reason to be mean to someone.
Yeah, but it's implied that DeMayer, when he saves this little boy, everyone instantly is like, oh God, DeMayer tackled some kid. They didn't think he's attacking him, but they're like, what did this idiot do? Yeah, I think it's kind of implied that he's mostly a harmless guy, but, everyone's like, oh, here comes DeMayer, probably going to give some words of advice we don't need when, he's the only one who, saves anyone in this film.
Well, he says to Mookie, "Do the right thing." And Mookie is like, "What? That's it? Okay, whatever." And he leaves. He ignores those words of wisdom, just like everyone ignores Smiley. Smiley is trying to explain what Malcolm X and what Dr. Martin Luther King said about racism. They had words of wisdom. Smiley is trying to impart that wisdom to the people in his neighborhood. What does everyone do? Shut up, Smiley. No one has time for this, Smiley. Leave us alone, Smiley. I was saying before, some of these conflicts could be avoided with respect. Maybe some of these conflicts could be avoided by listening. Just listening to what other people have to say. Maybe some wise people have some wise shit that you should listen to, and nobody does.
Let's talk for a minute about the Korean grocers. We didn't talk about them. They talk about the fact that they came off the boat less than a year ago. They already have their own grocery store in the neighborhood. It's doing very, very well. You see inside it a couple of times. The mayor goes in it to get a Miller High Life early in the morning. Radio Raheem goes in to get batteries. And then at the very end, very interesting scene where the Koreans are outside and the mob is kind of looking for more blood. And they turn to the Koreans and they say, "No, I'm just like you." And they're like, "No, you're not." And they're like, "No, I'm not white."
Well, at first he says, "I'm black."
Yeah.
And then they're all like, "No, you are not."
Yeah.
And then he kind of tones it down and is like, "Okay, but I'm like you." When he says, "I'm black," then they're like, "Oh no, you are not, and we are pissed." But then it's like, "I'm like you," and then they're like, "Yeah, you kind of are."
And then they walk away.
Right. Because they are not white. They are not the cops. They are also an other that is looked down upon. Even by members of the black community look down on them, but they realize that they are not the bad guys here.
That's right.
Eddie, you clearly love this movie, but I will ask...
Is that obvious?
It is, but that's fine. I will ask the question anyway. Do you think that Do the Right Thing stands the test of time?
I'm not even going to pause for dramatic effect. Absolutely. This movie 100% stands the test of time. I think this movie probably stands up more now, today, than it did in 1989 when it was released. You think about all the themes, the racial inequality, the global warming that they talk about. They talk about gentrification. You talk about the white guy who bought the brownstone in the neighborhood. All these things are happening still today. The police brutality, all these fucking things are happening still to this day.
Yeah.
And I look at this movie and I'm actually surprised this movie came out in 1989 because this movie, with all its flawed characters and all its messages, could easily have come out within the last 3 years, within the last year.
Sure.
100%. I think you look at modern cinema today, it takes a lot of these same messages and these same overarching themes. So 100% it stands the test of time. I'm so glad that we were able to go through it. I'm so glad I was able to watch it with you guys asynchronously, and then talk about it on the podcast. So thank you for having me back and for indulging me in doing the right thing.
There you go. Love the use of the word asynchronously. Also, thank you for getting me to watch this movie because I had never seen it, and I really appreciate that you picked this movie. But James, what do you think? Do you think that Do the Right Thing stands the test of time?
Do the Right Thing, I think, is a very entertaining film. I think you brought a really good point up, Al, that, yeah, there's this scene at the end, but there's a lot of funny parts in this film. One of the funniest parts, I think, and it's a little tension, but I think it's more for fun. There's this white guy that walks, he runs his bicycle over, I think it's Giancarlo Esposito's.
Bugging out, yeah.
Bugging Out's shoes. They're just kind of like, fuck you, no fuck you, back to each other. And it's a little, kind of a New York thing. I noticed watching this, there are no guns in this film at all. Sal has a baseball bat. Maybe it could have been a gun, and it could have been worse. Eddie, you say a great point that every character's flawed. I always find that to be a very good thing in any kind of story. In the end, it's funny, it's powerful, it's moving. It's not too long either. It's right about what it should be. Overall, a beautifully made film, and Spike Lee hit it out of the park with this one. So yeah, it stands the test of time. Al, 3 for 3.
Of course. This movie is phenomenal. I am truly mortified that I had never seen this movie before. Like I said, I watched it twice. I was happy to watch it twice. I want to go and watch other Spike Lee movies now. If the next one I watch is half as good as Do the Right Thing, I will be thrilled with that. This is a masterpiece. I'm not saying it to be overly effusive or melodramatic. This is a masterclass in filmmaking. Of course, because of the subject matter and what it tackles, but also because of the music and the acting and the writing. I love the wordplay, the way that they invert every phrase. Can you dig it? It is Doug. Like all of these little turns of phrase, I really, really appreciate that. Every little thing in this movie is phenomenal. Of course, it stands the test of time. What doesn't stand the test of time in this movie? You could say boom boxes, I guess, like
D batteries.
Sure.
Yes.
I mean,
no, I still have D batteries.
You do?
Yes.
For what?
I don't know.
Maybe one of those huge Maglite batteries.
Yes, probably.
You could say this about anything from video games to electronics, computers, whatever. But I mean, the way technology has advanced with speakers, those little JBL things, those are so powerful and tiny, and you don't need to carry the big giant thing. Also, this is a very tiny detail, but the way that people call their orders into Sal's is using the payphone, which Mookie is using to call Tina. That's kind of funny. Also, neither here nor there, but I love the way that Danny Aiello says pizzeria.
Yeah. And it's so obvious that he's never worked in a pizzeria before. There's this one scene where he's just like pushing the dough around. I don't know if you caught that.
I did not.
He's not like throwing it up in the air or anything. He's just like pushing it around very gently, caressing it. It's really, I cracked up at that.
That's really funny.
But you did say this is a masterclass in cinema, and I 100% agree with you. It is on the AFI Top 100 list. Do you know what number it is on the AFI Top 100 list?
I do, because like you, I listened to the Unspooled episode. It's 96.
Yes.
Which is horrific. Although they did point out in that podcast that Driving Miss Daisy is not on the list at all. So better to be 96 than completely omitted. But, I've mentioned it on the podcast before about how I truly despise the white savior movies. This is a movie that talks about racism, and it doesn't have any of that white savior bullshit. It's not condescending. It's not wagging its finger at the audience about, hey, guys, did you know racism? It's bad. And by watching this movie, you've kind of fixed it. That shit drives me crazy. It really gets under my skin. This movie deals with a very tough subject in a very honest way. You were saying that that all the characters are flawed, and you're right. Still, though, Spike Lee treats everyone, including Sal, with empathy.
He does.
You understand where they're coming from. You don't always agree with everyone. A lot of times you don't agree. Like I said, I think virtually wall to wall, everyone in this movie is doing the wrong thing. But you feel for them. You understand where they're coming from. You understand who they are. So it really is. It is a masterpiece. Honestly, of all the movies we've done on the podcast, this is up there, I think, is one of my all-time favorites. Definitely in terms of movies that I'd never seen before, but watched for the first time for this podcast. I can't think of any other movie that is better.
And James, you probably have the stats to say how many movies does Al watch the first time and been so glowing and so ebullient
It's very few.
Yeah.
It's very few.
The Gene Wilder, Harrison Ford movie. I can't even remember the name of it.
The Frisco Kid.
There you go. I really like that one. That was very, very good. Do the Right Thing is better. No offense to the Frisco Kid. But this is an amazing, amazing movie. Thank you so much, Eddie, for picking this movie. Thank you for giving me the push I needed to watch this movie not once, but twice. I mean, I don't want to say I'm glad that you had the flu. It sounded pretty bad when you were talking about it.
It was pretty awful.
Yeah. So I'm not glad that you had the flu, but I'm not sorry that I watched this movie.
And I'm sorry for making you watch Star Trek.
That you do owe me an apology for. Yeah, because this was supposed to be that episode, and then you bailed, and I had to watch fucking Star Trek, you dick.
I have one question for you guys. I always wonder when this film ends, does Sal rebuild?
That question is answered in another Spike Lee movie. It's called Red Hook Summer, and in that movie, Mookie reprises his role, and he is delivering pizza for Sal's, and there's even more than just what's in the movie. There's an interview where he talks about it and says that what happened after Do the Right Thing is Sal got an insurance check. He opened up a pizzeria in Red Hook, Brooklyn. He moved out of Bed-Stuy, and eventually he called Mookie and asked him if he wanted his old job back, and Mookie said sure. So, according to Spike Lee, the creator of these characters, yes.
Interesting.
How much is a slice of pizza?
$1.50.
Extra cheese?
$2.
$2.
Right.
It's hysterical. It cracked me up every single time.
That is funny. And at first I was like, wait, is it $2 extra for the extra cheese?
Yes.
Or does it bring the total of the slice to $2?
I believe it's $2 extra.
Which is batshit insane.
Yeah.
And also feels like a thing that would happen in New York City.
100%.
There's a sign outside of Sal's that says 2 slices and a soda for $2.75.
Oh, remember Mama T's?
I remember lots of places where you could do that, get a couple of slices and a drink with a $5 bill and have change.
Yeah. Amazingly, I just did that last night. I went to one of those 99-cent slice places in New York. I actually like those places because what they skimp on is they don't have too much cheese or too much sauce on them. It's the crispy New York dough, and I actually think they're pretty decent. No way are they as good as a real good pizzeria, but they're not bad. I mean, it's New York average, so it's going to be probably better than what you see in most cities.
That's true. But I still think those slices are bad. I mean, it's been years since I've had one. Eddie, thank you so much for coming back on the show. We'll have to have you back on again soon.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
You won't have to get drunk and sing our praises to strangers.
Okay, but I probably will anyway.
Well, that's fine too. Thank you very much for coming. And next time you're here, that will be number 5.
It might be, yes.
Yeah.
I think that's what the number that comes after 4.
I do believe so. Yeah, there'll be a hoodie in it for you.
I'm looking forward to it.
There you go. That's going to do it for us this week. Next week, we are going to be talking about Some Like It Hot, the other movie you watched in your freshman writing seminar.
Look at that.
Maybe it'll be about another hot summer. I have no idea.
Could be. That would explain the title. Until then, we want to hear from you guys. We are at Tested Time Pod on Facebook, X, Instagram, and Threads. By the way, since we crossed the 400 episode mark, a few people have asked me, where are all of your old episodes? Because a lot of places, Spotify and Apple, they only have 100. If you are looking for back episodes, testedtimepod.com, all 402. They are all there. You can find them there on the website. And we'll see you next time, everybody.
See you next week.
Bye.